Welcome. This is the Syncfusion webinar on our new data integration platform. My name is Whitney Hill, and I will be your webinar moderator today. I'm the video marketing specialist here at Syncfusion. Our presenter today is going to be Chad Church. Chad is a Microsoft certified solution developer, and he's been a product manager and sales engineer with Syncfusion for 6 years. He serves as a liaison between the developers who create the products at Syncfusion and the developers who use them. Today we're going to do a live demo showcasing the Syncfusion data integration platform, and then we're going to take some time to address audience questions during the last 20 minutes. If you've got a question for the presenter, please enter it into the question box at any time during the presentation. We'll answer as many questions as we can at the end of the session. This webinar is being recorded, and we'll share the recording in the next few days. All registrants will receive an email with a link. This and previous webinars will be available on our YouTube channel. So before we begin the demo, I'd like to tell you briefly a bit about what we do at Syncfusion. We deliver an extensive range of web, mobile, and desktop controls. We're dedicated to a service-oriented approach throughout the entire application lifecycle. And we also offer empowering enterprise solutions, including dashboard and big data platforms. We've been in business for just over 15 years and are headquartered in the Raleigh-Durham area of North Carolina in the United States. More than 12,000 organizations worldwide work with Syncfusion software in industries ranging from finance and energy to small independent app developers. And more than 750,000 users from 125 countries trust us in their development process. So now that you know a bit more about us, I'd like to hand over to Chad to demonstrate the data integration platform. Chad, over to you.
Hey Whitney, that was fantastic. Thank you for the introduction. And I think I need to become the presenter. All right, everybody, welcome to the Data Integration Platform webinar. And today, what I'm going to talk about today is here's my agenda. And we're going to go through all of this, the more detailed data flow. So the idea for, the more detailed data flow is going to be, we have the idea to take some data out of a SQL database and put that together with data in a log file, in a directory structure. And then we're going to show that data in a dashboard. So the idea is you'll have products and users through some other application will be determining a product rating to each of those products, or to 5 of those products. And then we'll take those ratings and show it in a dashboard. And that's the idea behind it. The data integration platform, this was built on Apache NiFi, the Java app created by the NSA, and it was released into the wild, into the Apache open source world about 2014. So as of 2014, the NSA was using this product for its data collection efforts. We've built this to integrate with the, and I just like the phrase, the Syncfusion data consumption stack. I think that's kind of nice. The idea is you have the data integration platform, we have Hadoop, and we have our dashboard. And the data integration platform is the lowest level. You just pick your data sources, or log file, whatever it happens to be, bring it in, do your ETL work, and then you can take that data, show it directly in the dashboard, or you can put it into Hadoop, do some Hadoop processing, and show that in the dashboard. And that's the idea. We do have full Syncfusion support behind this, so any questions you have, you contact our support team and we will send you back samples, whatever you happen to need to help you along the way as you go forward. Now this is a Java. NiFi is built in Java, so if you try to run Java in Windows, there's a fair bit of complexity. We've handled all of that. We've taken this web app, we created a web app, and we've put it in NiFi so it can be installable and work on your desktop as an application. Data source support, this is NiFi. It supports a lot of data sources. We've added data source support to this. We've got our own custom stuff, so you can do things that Syncfusion has, or we add our own custom stuff to it. And we've added the ability to let you create, extend this with C# code, so you don't have to write Java to make any changes to this. You can extend the processors and everything with a C# assembly that you make yourself. And without further ado, I'm going to jump directly into Big Data Integration Platform. This is a big blank screen, and that can be a bit daunting. I know it can for me. You wonder what to do with it. So I'm going to go ahead and jump straight into creating something. I'm going to create a process. So the processor is what actually does the work in your data flow. What I'm making here is called a data flow. That's the terminology that's used. And the processor is what does all the work. It does the logic, it does processing. And in this case, I'm going to generate, so there's about, last time I checked, there was about 138 different types of processes you can do. You can filter these based upon the context or what you want to do with it, or you can just simply type in and do a live filter on what you want to do. In this case, I'm going to generate a flow file. So here we go, we're generating a flow file. And the flow file is the actual data that goes through the data flow. The data flow file has attributes and it has content. You know, the content is what's in the file, and the attributes describe the file. That's the idea, that's how it's set up. So I'm going to generate a flow file here, and we're going to configure this. I'm going to give it a file size. And when you do give it a file size, you have to show the units. Otherwise, it won't know what to do with them. So generate a 100 kilobyte file, and I'm going to make this a text file so it's easily readable later. And I'm going to show you the text file later. So I'm creating a flow file here. It's going to generate random text for the file name, for the text inside it, but it's going to generate 100 kilobytes worth of random text. Okay. And that's what we have. We've generated a file, and that's all well and good, but it's kind of meaningless. So let's add another process here that's actually going to do something to that file. And I'm going to replace the text in that file with something else. So let's configure this one. This is the default search value. That is an expression, and I'll show you that in just a second. And this is a replacement value, and I'm going to give it something a little more interesting, and my name's always more interesting. So let's give the expression here. I'm going to add now. Now does exactly what you think it should do. And we're going to give now a format, and we're going to call it some text. And then I'm going to give it a timestamp. So let's see what time it is on this server that I'm running. There we go. All right. There's a regex expression. An expression that's going to put this here. So I'm going to put Chad, then a hyphen, and then the date timestamp. And we're going to do a complete replacement. That's what we're doing here. And we're going to apply. Now, I just did an expression, so before we jump too far, let me walk into what that is and what that does. This is help.syncfusion.com. You can come here, and we have help. Let's go back one more step. And this is our online documentation. From here, you can jump into any of our products, the dashboard or the data integration platform. And you want to know more about the expression language. That's what I was just doing. This is an overview telling you what it is, how to use it, the formats. If you want to do some searching, this tells you how you're going to search with. And you can come back and look at this as you're playing around with the application. Now, we've replaced the text inside it, but it's not entirely usable. Let's replace the file name as well. So I'm going to update the attributes. And this attribute I'm going to update is going to be called, let's configure this. This attribute update is going to add a new one here. This is the file name. And I'm going to call this, and I'm going to add expression to this so it shows up new, so it shows up unique. It's going to do now again, but I'm only going to show the and this is, I'm just going to show the date time, or the time rather. There we go. Completed the expression. So here we go. Now we have a file name defined. So we have created a file, added some text to it, given it a name. Let's put that file somewhere. So we're going to go to a put and file. There we go, put file. I'm going to configure this and give it a directory. The directory is going to be, this is the ETL tool, and we'll call it testing and test. It's going to create some directory structure there. We're going to tell it to create the missing directory, so it'll create whatever's there, and if there's an issue, it's just going to fail gracefully. So we've created a flow. This is all nice, but it's not but this needs to have relationships associated with it. So the whole point to this application is you're going to have a flow of data. So let's take it to generate, then we're going to flow this generated flow file down to replace text. And we're going to move here on success. So if the generate flow file is able to succeed in creating a file, then it's going to come down, and it's going to follow this relationship on success. Now it's going to replace text. Quick note, you see the little icons up here. The warning icon means something's not right. The processor can't work. The little red square or your stop button on your old VCR, those of you that remember VCRs, the stop button means you're okay, you're ready to go. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but it'll make sense later. So let's say what we want to do on the success of this one, put it here, and we're only going to go here on success. So this is the success of replacing text. It's going to go down to update attribute. So we have success here, and this is still not ready because it doesn't know what to do if there's a failure. So let's come back in here and configure this and go and say on failure, we want it just to die gracefully. So it's just going to stop on a failure. Okay. And I think I might need to do the same thing here. It's going to, so this is going to, well, we don't want to do that. All right, update attribute. We are going to take this and tell this to go to put file when it's completed. And on success, it's going to go to the put file processor. And then the put file. Now this is the end of our flow. So we want to auto-terminate regardless of whatever happens. Success or failure, we just want this thing to stop working. So we're going to do this here, okay, and we're going to apply. So now we have little red squares everywhere. It looks like this is going to run. Let me go and check my folder here, and yes, I was playing around with this before the webinar, so there's already a test folder. I deleted that, and so we have our process, we have our data flow, our process is connected. We want to actually run these. So let's select all the ones that we want to run, right click, and we'll say start. So now they're running. This little process is just churning and churning and churning. And let's see if anything works. So here's our testing folder I created, and our test, and our files. And I forgot to add the text at the end of it. So Notepad's not going to open it automatically. Let's force it. And here's my name. It's a wonderful thing. My name, a date timestamp, and we are rolling. This process works. For whatever purpose it is, it works. Now this is all well and good, and if you created this on your dev box, that's a fantastic thing. You can work it in your dev world. But eventually you want this to run in production. You know, you can put this on a server and you can run it in production environment, but then you're developing in production, and that's a really bad practice. So what we want to do here is we want to create a template with this. So we are going to go and create a template. We're going to go to our templates. Well, that's not here we do it. We're going to create a template from this particular process. Everything highlighted here is going to be a template. So let's create a template, and let's call this webinar. Okay, and this is just some simple, and if I can type correctly, simple flow. There we go. So we have a simple flow template created. Now, that's good, but that template only lives here in this world. You still need to put it somewhere on a server. So let's go ahead and export that to a folder. I'm going to let it go right into here. It's called webinar, and let's save it. Okay, so now we have it in a folder directory, and in real life you will take this webinar and you'll put it onto another computer. You'll load it up, you'll load the template, and you'll run here. I want to simulate that, so I'm going to open it, and I'm going to change the name value. I'm opening a Notepad because I love XML format. This is fantastic. We'll call it test. All right, and let's save that. So what you'll do, once you push this up to the server, you'll come back into the templates for that instance, and you'll select that template you just brought up, open, and then import. And it shows up here as webinar test. And that's all well and good, but then you need to put a template onto your onto your surface here. So let's add that template, and I want to add the webinar template to it. And here we go. Now you will have to, so the information is here. What I want to do, everything is the same thing. You'll have to create your connections and do all that. When that's create your connections, because things may change at the server. The way the database you talk to may be different than the one you created here. So you have to, but the processors are all in the same place. And that's how you would do that. Then you'll put this on your server and you'll run in production mode however you need to do that. So one more thing, this is a big surface and it's all in one place, so you have these breadcrumbs up here. These breadcrumbs are how you're going to encapsulate your data flows or your processes. So you have different things. And they do that because this can be quite complicated. In this case, I have one process group, and this process group contained now these two, well, this one flow and these two random processes disconnected. If we go up to the very top level, the top level is our entire data flow, you're going to see several process groups. And these process groups over here are what we did with our bigger, little more complicated sample that we made. And I'm going to walk you through each of these. So again, the idea was to start with a database table. So we like Northwinds. Northwinds is available, it's free, it works well. We created a table of Northwinds products. The product information out of Northwinds database, we made a table for it. Okay. And I'm going to stop here and talk about the servers. This is your server. This is your data connection pooling. And let's go look at that. They are your controller services. They live here. I can also get to them from the controller settings icon. We have the SQL Server. This is how you're going to talk to other things. In this particular case, we're going to talk to SQL Express. And we're going to use this database driver. These are particular. There are links, so we have knowledge base articles telling you exactly how to use these, how to go get them, how to install them. Just to be quick, they do install into this folder. This is where NiFi lives, and this particular connection is this file here. It's this jar file. That's what we're talking about in this particular case, this JDBC SQL Server driver. So throughout everything we've done here, you can put comments here to let other people know or to record your own thoughts about what you were doing with this controller or with any of the processes. You can put comments here just to have a running record of what you were doing. And then put SQL is just going to execute the query that was defined. That's all it does. It's going to execute that SQL statement. Okay, so in this case we created our beginning table, and then we are going to populate that table from a CSV file. So we've already, we've already taken that products and put it into a CSV. So we need to populate that data now, and this is what we're doing. And I'll step you through another process of this in more detail. And then creating the final product table, this is just going to execute another SQL statement to create the final product. So we're going to create this table, and this table is going to include the date and the comments and a unique ID for each. So this is where we're actually at the end result, we've taken the log file, married it up to the actual product names, and now we're creating a table that we can use for showing data in our dashboards to our executives, to whomever needs to see it. This is the table that's going to be used for that. The table already exists. This is how we created that particular table. I'm going to cancel out of that. Now we're going to generate these log files. Again, it's going to be a very simple log file. I don't want to do that. I want to do this. I'd like to step into here. There we go. So execute product. This is simple. We're only doing 5 particular products, and we could have made this a little more complicated, a little more sensical, have one process generating the files, but for the purposes of the demo, this is enough. And we actually created a console application. Console application is just going to return good or bad. That's all it does. And it's going to run and this process is going to run that console app, get that value that was returned. That value that was returned is going to be put into a log file, and then that log file is going to be stored into a folder setting, and this is the folder setting for it. So it's going to be put into the T, actually, product folder for Northwind's database. This is how we're creating our log files. Now this is the one that does all the work, all the interesting work happens here. So, and I renamed this a little bit so it makes more sense. So we're going to get our product list. We're going to query that database and get a list of products. So we're going to select everything from the Northwind's products database using SQL Server connection. This creates a flow file. The flow file has a collection of objects in it, and now we have that flow file, but we need to convert it to be a JSON data set. So we're just going to create a JSON array. We're not going to wrap single records. We're just going to create a simple JSON array out of that flow file. So as we're going through this process, we create a flow file. Every processor down the line has access to that flow file and to anything else you create. So if I create a new property, a new parameter here at this point, this processor over here is going to have access to that, is going to know it exists. It's going to be part of the data flow. So everything is all together. You can see everything as you go. I'm going to rename that flow file because I'm going to need to process and use it later. So here's my configure where I'm going to rename it, call it input.json. And you can see that these files live, well, not here. These files live here, input.json, final output. These are the two files that are generated. We put them here just for records so we can see these, see how they look, and see what we're doing with it. Okay. And that's just part of the development process. You'll do things like that. Here we're going to save that input file. Now we're going to take that flow file. So we saved it, but the flow file still exists as part of this flow. We just saved a copy of it. Now we're going to split that JSON array. And so we're going to split it into individual, rather than be one big array, it's going to be, or the opposite, rather than being a collection of objects, it's going to be a series of objects. So it's going to be flat JSON. Then we're going to come in and remove all of the starting curly braces. And that's what this is. We're going to remove all these starting curly braces here. We're going to replace with nothing. This is a null value as part of the expression. Okay, I'm just going to do a replace. Then we have to go in and remove all of the trailing curly braces. And we're going to go in and remove all of the quotation marks out of this. Again, we're moving it out of this file here, moving all the curling braces, and then we're going to move the quotation marks. So we actually have text with a colon, and then in this case a product colon ID comma is what this is going to end up being as we're going through it. Now we're going to create, CSV is a little bit easier to work with than JSON, so we're going to create a CSV file. CSV is going to take the flow file, it's going to create each data, and it's going to create a CSV file that is just comma delimited. So the first, these are going to be 10 comma delimited items per row. So this is essentially our 10 fields that go into the database. Now we're going to look for the log files. We want to go in and we got to parse through the log files. The way we're going to do that is look for this folder structure. And I'm going to put this down a little bit. Make it a little bit easier to see. So it's going to look for products. It's going to look for the folder after its object 2 substring. So product ID is first, and then the name is second. So it's going to look at the second field in that particular row. The substring after the colon is going to be the name. That's the folder it's looking for in this path. Okay. And then it's going to look for this log file. And this was the name of that log file we generated from that console app. So we're going to create that file. And we're going to create this because this created your CSV file with as many inputs as there were products. That many inputs came into this process. So this process had And I think there's 15 or 20 different products. So this processor here had 15 or 20 different inputs coming into it. So for every input, it's going to run this. It's going to try and run this. And we have it set up so on failure, it just quits. Then it'll go to the next input, and it'll run for that one. And at the end of it, it's only going to find 5. So when it comes to here, there's only 5 inputs that are going to go into this processor. And then these 5, it's going to come in and simply append this to each record in the CSV. So now instead of 10, it's going to have 11. Then we're going to take that log file and we combine it with our SQL data. So we're actually creating here a SQL data set, essentially. Your input statement is what we're going to make here, essentially. Product ID, then it's going to be your product ID, then product name, supplier ID. So this is getting ready for our later insert statements into the tables. So then we're going to take this and make one file. We're going to pack it all together into a text file, into a JSON file, and we're going to add the trailing bracket and the leading bracket so it becomes a JSON object at this point. Change the file name, save it to a folder, and that is this file. Why do I keep doing that? That is this file here, final output, and we have this information. So you have this object here, and this object ends right here. Wrong. Object ends here. So we have a collection of objects in JSON that we're doing. Now we're going to parse that array. So we have, now this is the array of data here, and then we save it to a folder. Now it still exists in memory, still exists as part of this flow. We're going to parse it. And parse it is just going to create another collection here. And then this processor here will actually take that collection and create insert statements for every object in it, insert or update. In this case, it was an insert for every object in that collection. And then we want to execute the SQL, which is your put statement. It's just going to run it against the same controller. And then we want to create the dashboard data source. This is something that we made that actually will take this and create that data source for our dashboard to use so this data can be shown. And that's the idea behind this whole thing. So this is fairly detailed flow of information that runs. It's going to run repeatedly because as we're doing this, we actually are creating, we're creating these log files. The log files are created, the data product table is created, and let's run both of these. And yeah, so we can watch this. So as it's running here, we have 15 are running. Here 21 are running. So let's step into this and let's do a refresh status. And you can see the outputs, the inputs as we're going through this. So this is creating your files. Let's zoom in just a little bit here so we can see better. So let's refresh this again. And you can see that data is actually moving through this particular flow. Okay. And let's step into this one and let's make sure data is moving through this flow. And it is. You can see the data going through it as things happen. And we had a failure. All right. So beautiful. And so this shows up here. This is also more visible in the bulletin board. You actually see the information that happens as it fails in runtime. Well, this updates periodically. You get to see the information here. At this point, you can copy the text and you can save it. You copy the text and save it for later and do different things with it. But let's go ahead and stop everything. And that is how everything's going to work in this process here. I'm going to not worry about that, and we'll see what happens with it. Yes. So data file is created, data access is created. Let's go look at a dashboard, and I'll jump back into this in more details a little bit later. Let's go look at our dashboard now. Here's a dashboard, and I already have one created. It's going to use that data object. And this is the connection that was created here. And let's step into this connection and take a look at it. Here we're pulling the data, pulling the new information here, the comments data unique. And if we look at it, it still exists, so I suspect the insert was because it's existed. But here's the data that's showing up. I created this with our designer here where we simply can pull this out. So if I want to put the new product over here, then it's a designer. These will link up. I'm not going to because it's the same data. Add a connection. This is talking to Microsoft SQL Server. You have a variety of other choices you can use as you're going through it. And you don't have to use the designer portion here. You can simply paste in the SQL statement if you wish. But let's go take a look at how everything's set up. This is our tables, and I'm going to get rid of this chart just to, well, I'm going to make this chart smaller. Okay. And let's look at this chart over here. This one's a little more interesting. This chart is showing data from the count per product name. So each product name, this is the Sasquatch Ale and the Laughing Lumberjack. This is a count of the bad reviews and a count of the good reviews for the product. This over here is simply a list of the products that show up. So our table here is just going to show every product. It shows up every record in the data set. If at this point I want to do some math or some expressions to it, I could add an expression here. I want to do a sum of the pricing or anything like that. That's all available to you here at this point in time. And here we're actually showing these are all the fields or columns that you want to show. And if I needed to, I could put, say I wanted to put a pie chart over here. We click and drag, and we're going to put a pie chart. And the pie chart can show some information. You make it bigger, make it smaller. Configure this to talk to a data source, and we only have one data source in this particular sample. You could have as many data sources as you wish. In this case, we only have one. And let's put, see what data we want to show. Let's show comments against products. Let's see if that's going to, here we go. And so there's that count, so they all have an equal number of comments. And it's not a very meaningful chart, but you get the idea of what you can do with it. Now we have our dashboard created, and we can preview this. So this is exactly how it would look when it's run real time. Okay, everything's here bigger. You can expand this, let it be bigger, let it be smaller. You can export this to a image, PDF, or the data can go to CSV or Excel. This chart here, this is a range navigator, and this actually is a master widget. So everybody connected to that data source will filter based upon the date, time I'm picking here. And I'm going to go a little bit off, so I should get a failure. There's no data, and we can move over a little bit until we find the data. Let's go this way a little bit. A little bit more. There we go. There's the data. So the data is in this particular range here. And this isn't configured to show times across the bottom. It's, well, it's in seconds, so it's kind of silly to show something like this. But that's how it works. That's how the dashboard works. That's how a data integration platform is going to work. And I do have some time, so we can step back a little bit about this. You do have the ability, so you can create these, let's step into here actually, and let's create another flow file. With the flow files you can, with the process group, you can create an input and output format. So I'm going to actually copy this, and let's see if it pays. So there we go. We have two copies here, and they both work. Let's get rid of all of these guys here. And I just wanted to put two together. So right now there's nothing to connect. Okay, you have input ports and an output port. So The idea being you can take an entire flow and put it together. So let's take this right here and let's give it let's create an output port. There's output port. And we'll call this out for lack of a better term. Here we go, out. And let's define this, configure it. And let's put you here. So this is going to take that data flow, configure it to an out. If it succeeds in saving that file, then it's going to go to the output. So it's going to put that file here to the out. Now let's go back up a level, and this now has an out port. This one, right? This one here I think needs an input port. Yeah, so let's come in here, and let's create an input port. Okay, and the input is going to go into, let's go straight into replace text for the input. Okay, and there we go. And let's get rid of this one, and we'll leave you all by yourself. We don't need you anymore. And let's change this file here to be something else. We'll change the text to be, instead of me, we'll change it to be Bob. I like Bob. He's a good guy. We'll put Bob in there. Apply, and let's change the file name as well to be, we call it Bob's Webinar. Well, I don't want to do it there. Bob Webinar. All right, so let's, okay. Let's apply that. So what should happen once a flow file has been created in the other process, it's going to go create a file, then come here, take that file, the flow is going to come into here, we're going to replace the text again, update the name again, and then put the file into the same folder, same directory structure. So let's go look and let's kill this directory structure. Okay, so we're looking at brand new data, and let's go back up here and let's run these two, shall we? So let's see. There we go, let's start. Ah, there we go. So well, how about if I connect these two? There we go, output to input. All right. It's always good if you do actually finish your thoughts and start. And look at that, it's working. So if we refresh the status here, I bet I know what's wrong. Let's stop these two groups, and let's make sure there's no data here. No, they're both in it, so it worked. It worked just fine. We have Bob and we have webinar. That is, so here we created put an output port on this, so you can get the data out. So now you can see how process groups can be hooked together in your application. And again, this can be made. You can save this to a template, so now you have groups in a template. So this can be as big and exciting as you need it to be. And with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and end now and go to the comments or questions. Any questions people have, I'm going to give it back to Whitney, and we'll go through questions. Whitney, are you ready?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So thank you for the presentation, Chad. And I saw quite a few questions come in over the course of it. So while Chad and the support staff review those questions, I'd like to quickly tell you about our flat fee license. It includes access to the Essential Studio Suite with more than 650 controls for desktop, web, and mobile, as well as full use of our enterprise solutions. So if you like that dashboard that Chad showed you, that will be included in the flat pricing model. And for smaller companies, for those making revenue less than $1 million, we've got a free community license. So be sure to go to our website and check that out. For the larger companies, we do recommend taking a look at our flat license. Well, thank you everyone for viewing with us today, and we're going to end the session now. Chad, thanks for presenting. Daniel, thanks for helping out with the questions. We hope everyone enjoyed the demo today of the data integration platform. And as was said, please watch your email inboxes for follow-up email with a link to the recording. Thanks again for your time and interest, and we'll see you next time.